and all, and you are watching the Overreaction. This is Sigh, and we are going to talk about Week 2 matchups in this video. But first, a quick recap of Week 1. Some amazing Overwatch was played. It was nice to see the high-level Overwatch being played again by these pros. A few things we learned for sure. The London Spitfire were not ready for opening week. It didn't seem like at all. They're 0-2. Super disappointing, honestly. And the other thing we also learned for sure, Defran is for real at the pro level. He played really well. The Atlanta Reign showed off as a team. They showed that they were ready to be playing at this level, and it should be exciting to watch moving forward. Alright, but now let's move on to Week 2, Day 1 matchups. First off, we have the Washington Justice versus the Spitfire. Our second match will be the Philadelphia Fusion versus the Florida Mayhem. Our third match is going to be the Charge versus the Fuel, and then our final match of the day will be the Dynasty versus the Hunters. Alright, and now picks for these matches are as follows. I have the London Spitfire beating the Washington Justice. I think they're going to rebound. I think they're going to win their first match of Season 2. I think Gesture is going to need to play and play well, and we're also going to need to see Profit stand out more in this match. Match 2, the Fusion are going to beat the Florida Mayhem. Mayhem looked really bad Week 1. I think the Philadelphia Fusion looked really good, so I think that's going to be a fairly easy win, and I think Carpe Zarya was a real standout in that series. Next, you have the Charge versus the Fuel. I think the Charge are going to win this series, not because the Fuel are bad, just because the Charge, I think, looked better in their opener. So I think the Charge are going to win that series. Then the last match of the day, we're going to see the Dynasty up against the Hunters. The Hunters were really impressive in their opening match against the Charge. I think Dynasty are going to have to prove that they can do it, that they can win, given their loss against the Fuel in Week 1. So I think the Hunters are going to come away with the win in that match as well. All right, going to Day 2, we have the Atlanta Reign versus the Toronto Defiant. We move on to the Excelsior versus the Valiant. Match 3 is the Shanghai Dragons versus the Boston Uprising. And our final match of the day is the Houston Outlaws versus the Spark. All right, now it's time for picks. Atlanta Reign, Toronto Defiant, Atlanta, Defran. Enough said. Moving on. Excelsior versus the Valiant. Excelsior will win this match. They've looked very impressive. The Valiant are going to bounce back, just not against the Excelsior. Then we have the Dragons versus the Uprising. Neither team's great, but I think the Uprising are going to take it, mainly because Fusion is absolutely hard carrying that team right now. I think they're going to beat the Dragons. Last match of the day, the Spark versus Houston. Spark's going to win. Houston is really struggling right now. I don't know if they're just being out-goats or what, but the Spark are going to win that match. All right, now matchups for Saturday, Day 3. Start off the night, we've got the LA Gladiators versus the Eternal. Next up, the Fusion versus the Fuel. Then we're going to see the Titans versus the Charge, and then the Hunters against the Mayhem. Now moving on to picks. The Eternal are going to beat the Gladiators. They looked really impressive against the Spitfire. They're going to win. The Gladiators are going to get together. They have a very talented roster. They're going to be really good, but right now the Eternal are just better. Next matchup, the Fuel versus the Fusion. The Fusion look almost unbeatable at this point, so the Fusion are going to win that one. And then third matchup, you have the Titans versus the Charge. The Titans roster played really well, and it's just a really talented roster, so the Titans are going to take that third match. And then we follow up with the Hunters and the Florida Mayhem. The Florida Mayhem, while they have a lot of heart, are still the Florida Mayhem, so the Hunters are going to win that match. Moving on to the fourth and final day of the week, which is by far the saddest day of the week for me. We have the Spark kicking it off against the Spitfire. Next match, we have the Excelsior versus the Outlaws. Match 3, the Toronto Defiant versus the LA Valiant. And for our final match of the week, we have the Titans versus the San Francisco Shock. Now my picks for Day 4. I have the Spark beating the Spitfire. The Spark are playing just at a much higher level right now. Then we have the Excelsior versus the Outlaws. Excelsior will win that match. They were a more talented roster last season, and they've continued to be a more talented roster this season. The Toronto Defiant versus the LA Valiant. I have the Valiant winning that match. The Toronto Defiant are very good, but I think the Valiant are going to bounce back. They're going to win that match. And in the final match of the day, we have the Titans versus the Shock. Now, while the Shock looked really good week 1, it's a very talented roster. The Titans, I still think, are going to be better. The Titans will win that match. All right, now those are the matchups. Those are my picks. If you watched my video from last week, you know that I took a little bit of a beating, but that's okay. We're going to bounce back week 2. Let me know what your picks were in the comments, what things excited you the most about week 1, what kind of surprises you had. And as always, this is Sigh, and I hope that you enjoyed the overreaction.